Okay, I've been on a little bit of a break and back at it over the last couple of days. The underfelt is fitted on both the driver's side and the passenger side, and I'm going to be fitting the carpet. Before I do that, I have one thing I have to do on the driver's side, which I'll share with you right now. Before I can install the carpet, I've got to fit this piece. This is on the driver's side and is the wiring loom cover for the cables that basically go from the front bulkhead to the instrument panel and also back to the rear of the car. This end goes towards the footwell, and then this is to wrap the cable at the far at the instrument panel end. I'm not exactly sure how this goes in yet, but we'll figure that out. Two self-tapping screws. So yeah, two self-tapping screws here. They correspond to the original position in the car. Basically, I took the old piece, took off the old trim, repainted it and recovered it. This needs to go in before I put in the carpet. This is the approximate location for that wiring loom cover, and I'm going to install that in a few minutes, and I'll come back and show you the end result. Okay, and this is that installed position. So the reason I'm making a video about this is because I couldn't understand what this piece was for, and it was in a box, and I knew it had a function, and eventually I worked out this is what it's for, with a little bit of help from people online, etc. So this is how I've installed it, and it certainly does tidy up the wiring very significantly. I'm actually pretty pleased with that. Okay, this is the front carpet set. Passenger side to the left of the picture, driver's side to the right. I'm not sure what the actual sequence is in the factory, but the way that I'm going to do this is this piece is number 1. This piece will be number 2. This piece will be number 3 and number 4, and then the actual carpet lays in. So I'm going to take my time with each individual piece. There's very little cutting to do, as the templates of the carpet are already pretty good based on some initial fitment trial. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, nothing too exciting here. The carpet trim is in both driver's side and passenger side. It went reasonably smoothly. There's a lot of just reaching in, and you have the sill to consider, and you have to reach into these far corners, so a bit sore on the ribs in doing that. I have it all installed. Everything needs a good clean and hoovering, but right now I'm pretty happy with it. Driver's side and passenger side went both as smoothly. I did the passenger side first because of the lack of complication caused by the pedals, and then obviously I did the driver's side. This piece is the hardest to fit, in my opinion, and the gluing sequence that I used for that was this edge and this edge here, and then to hold that in place you have to try and get this edge as high as you possibly can, and when you're using the contact adhesive, that's not so straightforward. I actually cut some relief for these hinges here, which hold the center console radio, or the radio console, I should say. So this piece is glued first, then I glued this panel and this panel down to this edge. When I say I glued, what I mean is that I put contact adhesive on both sides, let it set, then put it in place, and then I left it for a good 15 minutes before I went on to the next piece. So my process that I've used is very sequential and takes some time. But because I'm gluing them in sections, I have less challenges associated with how to do all of that in one go. So this piece was next, and then this edge here, and then this final edge. The next piece was related to the center tunnel. That's fairly straightforward. The one aspect there is that you really want to, that's your dominant edge to fit around this cross-sill section. But that's a relatively flat panel. Then I moved on to this panel, and even though there's a lot going on here, this was actually fairly straightforward. So what I did was I taped off the door hinge mounting plate and also the sill vinyl to protect that from any spray and from the adhesive can, and that worked out very well. So I used adhesive on this edge first, and then I literally wrapped it round, and I actually used adhesive over the whole section. Or they did this as one piece. So because it's got a nice right angle and it's a flap, you're not trying to fight around other corners and interacting with other pieces. So once you've got this piece in place and held, when you then wrap it, the only real difficult piece is making sure that you have that corner quite tight. And that worked out. Fitting the end piece for the foot plate, very straightforward. That was the last piece to go in. And then I'm leaving this to lie in the section for your actual feet. Obviously, I'm going to use another mat on top of that as well. So this is getting ready for the radio console and center console to go in, and which will be my my next task. With the front carpet in place, I then installed this trim that's used for underneath the seat. This is not glued in at this particular point, and I might just leave it that way. But there's a couple of reasons why I haven't done it yet. Is that primarily because of seatbelt bolts. One in particular, this one over here in the corner, I've yet to resolve that. Also, there's some B-pillar trim that requires for this piece to be lifted a little bit. So the hardest part is to get these bolt holes in place and have it positioned correctly. I used the previous mat to do that, and that worked out very well. Both sides have gone in relatively smoothly, so I'm pretty happy with that. The rear waterfall, the biggest challenge with this piece is that it's one piece, and the contact adhesive doesn't give you a lot of room for maneuver there. So the sequence that I used for gluing was that I did this 2-inch piece going across the car first, and that allowed me to get everything positioned, and also that was a good start point. Again, I glued both sides, left it for a few minutes to let it get tacky, then stuck it down, and then I left it for 15 plus minutes to make sure that it had a pretty reasonable bond. So at that particular point, it's then just trying to get adhesive onto the different areas and gluing it in sequence. So the next section here was this big piece. I did all of that in one go. So from here to here, same thing, glued it, contacted the two surfaces, let it dry. Then I did this piece here, same thing, and then literally it folds over and I did the top surface, and that's worked out pretty well. I don't know the shortcuts to any of this, so I take an abundance of time, but for me this looks like it's worked out at this stage. I have to decide, does this need a little bit of trimming? I'll decide that once I see that the trim piece that goes in there, whether it's needed or not. The next thing up is the center console and radio console. I've already dry fitted that, and I understand my assembly sequence that I'm going to use for that. We'll see how that goes.